Good morning, beautiful people. Today we are going to be making homemade spaghetti sauce. I love this recipe. It's one that I created on my own. It's very flavorful. It tastes very fresh. All of the ingredients are fresh and wholesome. So once this is done, what I really like about it is that you can literally taste every single ingredient and it is so delicious. It's super easy to make. Once again, in this video, we're gonna be water bathing because we're using primarily tomatoes. So we do not need to pressure can, which is always nice. It goes along a little bit quicker. This recipe though, you do want to assemble and cook in your roaster. That way, as it's cooking, it has an opportunity to cook out a lot of that water and thicken throughout the day. It also gives the spaghetti sauce an opportunity to really cook and blend all of those flavors together. Now, this is my way of doing it. Of course, there's lots of other ways that you can make spaghetti sauce. As you know, I do not peel my tomatoes. I go ahead and grind them with the skins, the seeds, the juice, everything. There are certainly recipes out there where you can remove skins, you can juice them, you can take the seeds out. I don't mess with all that. It's just as easy, actually it's much easier to just go ahead and cook with all of that stuff in there. So today for this recipe, what we are going to need is our big roaster, which I've already got here, prepped and ready to go with the majority of the tomatoes already done so we can save some time. So this is 25 pounds of tomatoes. I also am going to use 6 whole Vidalia onions. You can use whatever onion you want. I happen to use Vidalia. We are going to use 3 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. This is really nice to help thicken that sauce so it doesn't need quite as much time to cook down the water. You can use individual spices that I'm going to name here in a second, or you can use an Italian seasoning which has everything all in there together. And what I'm looking for is oregano, we're looking for rosemary, parsley, basil, that sort of thing. So this seasoning actually already has all of that in there. So if we were going to do it separately, excuse me, we would use a half a cup of, I don't see my oregano, but we would use a half a cup of oregano, 1 tablespoon of rosemary. As you know, rosemary is a very strong spice. You would use 1 cup of parsley, and I would still use a 1/4 cup of the Italian seasoning. So if you want, you can, like I said, just add all that together and just use the Italian seasoning. But we'll go ahead and throw all of this together here. So I'm going to go ahead and get 1 tablespoon of rosemary and get that sprinkled in there. And I am going to find my oregano, which I'm not seeing, so we'll add that into the Italian seasoning. And then we're going to use a half a cup of parsley. Here it is. So here's our half a cup of parsley, and that is right here. This gives it a nice flavor as well, and it's also kind of a clean sort of flavor. So we'll put that in there. I just used the last of that, so that's good. And then since we didn't have the oregano, what I'm gonna do is 3/4 cup of Italian seasoning. So this is a 1 cup here. I just used the end of that. So let me open up this Italian seasoning. Whenever possible, I do use fresh herbs, but they didn't have any at the grocery store that I needed the last 2 times that I went, which is super disappointing. So, all right, let's finish this off with the Italian. So we're going for 3/4 cup, which is going to be about right there. Sprinkle that in. And then we need 1 whole cup of minced garlic. Let me grab that out of the fridge. So I use, usually I just use the minced garlic from Sam's. I'm not really big on organic or otherwise. The only difference between organic and regular is whether or not they use chemical sprays on it. When they can it and process it, it still goes through the same process. And let me tell you, I've seen some 2020 episodes where factories and that sort of thing are not as clean as we would like to envision, which is why I try to can so much stuff. So this is what I'm using today. Just this one happens to be organic because Kroger was out of the regular and I didn't have time to go to Sam's. So we're gonna use 1 cup of this minced garlic. I love garlic, this smells so good. I don't know if you're a garlic person like me, but I can literally never have enough garlic, although that would be a bit too much. So we're gonna put that in there. I will put that in the sink. And we are going to use, excuse me, 1 cup of basil. Now, I did run out of my fresh basil pesto out of the garden that I had, so I'm going to have to use basil pesto that I bought from the store. Now you can also use fresh fresh basil leaves that are either, you know, totally fresh or dried. The reason that I use the pesto, or I make pesto with my fresh leaves, is because you do get some of that olive oil in there, which has, believe it or not, some really nice flavor to it. So I'm just getting this out of the jar and into my cup here. So let me get this all in. So that's a cup worth there. And then we will, I'm making a mess here, people. We'll go ahead and get, I already put 2 of the cans of tomato paste in here, but I'll go ahead and get my 3rd one in here. All right. Such a tiny little can. It's hard to get a spatula in there and get it all cleaned out. Now, when, I know I already had the majority of my tomatoes, onions, and that sort of thing already in here, but I did save a few back. I want to show you how I do that. So for that, I use my Ninja blender to just kind of blend everything up. And I've got one of my onions here. For my onions, I just go ahead and quarter those and get those in the blender. I put those at the bottom just because they tend to get caught if there's not something on top and you just end up working a little bit harder. I like to work smarter, not harder. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I do have 1 orange pepper in there. You can substitute for any type of pepper that you like, whether that's green, red, orange, yellow, whatever. I happen to like the orange. It's a little bit sweeter of a pepper, and that's what I happen to like. So you can put whatever pepper your heart desires in there. Again, whether that's green, red, orange, or yellow. Green and red, in my opinion, tends to be a little stronger and definitely not sweet. I'm not quite sure how I would describe it. I'm not sure that I would say bitter, but they're definitely stronger. Whereas your orange and your yellow are going to be sweeter peppers, and that's the flavor that I tend to like a little bit more. All right, so now that we've got all that in there, I'm just gonna put my lid on. I'm gonna use the pulse. That way, if anything is getting stuck, I can kind of stop and let it sink to the bottom and then go again. So here we go. And that is it. You're just gonna blend it up until it is a nice liquidy type mixture. And since that's the end, I'm gonna go ahead and get that emptied out of there. Might as well just scrape this out, because if not, it's just gonna end up in the bottom of my dishwasher. So we will get that cleaned out of there. Now remember, if you have any questions as I go through this, feel free to contact me. I'll provide that information at the end of this video, or you can always post in the bottom of the video in the comments, and I will get a notification on those questions, and I'll be able to answer them that way. Now, this is all of our ingredients except for 1 or 2. Put definitely getting close to the end of our ingredients here. So this is one of my favorites. I feel like this is the secret ingredient, if I'm being honest. I used to just do separate garlic powder and onion powder, but this stuff, I feel like this just has a lot of extra flavor to it. So it's not just garlic or onion, it's garlic and herb. It's made by McCormick. We happen to use it on a lot of different stuff, but it's really, really good in the spaghetti sauce. Like I said, I feel like it adds a little more flavor than just your regular garlic powder, onion powder, and I do use a whole cup. This stuff is amazing. And I already got rid of my, no I didn't. What did I do with my spatula? I'm not sure I'll find that. But I want to scrape that out because it's more gunk that'll end up in my dishwasher. So that's the garlic and herb. And then I'll put a couple of bay leaves in here as well. Now, before I can, as I'm stirring and kind of mixing things up for that final time, I will pull these out just because I don't want one giant leaf to end up in one jar and really overpower and over season that. So these are gonna be in here, it's about 6 there. These are gonna be in here to just kind of cook throughout the entire process. So that is the majority, I mean, that's pretty much everything that goes in here. And I say pretty much because there is one other thing that I will throw in here simply out of personal preference. We really like spinach in our spaghetti sauce. I know some of you are gonna be like, spinach, ew. Others of you are gonna be like, yeah, it's a great, great additive. I started years ago doing this because my girls hated vegetables, but they loved spaghetti. So adding spinach leaves to the spaghetti sauce was a great way to hide those vegetables, and they never seemed to even notice that they were in there. And over time, I've just really liked having spinach in there. Again, it's a great way to get some of that extra nutrients that spinach provides. It is a superfood. So I really like adding fresh spinach leaves. So I'm not gonna add those now because we do have about 6 to 8 hours that this needs to cook in the roaster. I'm gonna put my roaster on 300 degrees and I am gonna cook this without a lid on, no lid, because the whole goal in this is getting as much of this water to cook out as possible. So I'm gonna set this at 300 degrees, which it already is set at, and I'm gonna let this cook, again, about 6 to 8 hours. I'll come and check on it and stir it, throughout the day. But this is what it looks like right now, and it's important to note how full this roaster is right now, because when we are done and ready to can it, we should see about 1/4 of this gone, and that's gonna be that water evaporating. I'll show you as well, I don't know if you can see all of this really nice color in here with all of the vegetables and herbs and spices that we put in. I will also say that if you don't wanna blend your onions and pepper, you are certainly welcome to dice that. And then what you'll get is a little more of a, chunky tomato sauce, which some people really like that. I just prefer a really smooth spaghetti sauce, so that's the reason why I blend everything. Plus I feel like the flavors kind of cooked together a little bit better that way. So again, we've got 25 pounds of tomatoes in here. We have 6 Vidalia onions. We've got 3, I already threw it away. We've got 3 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. We've got our Italian seasoning, which is made up of oregano, rosemary, parsley, and celery seed. And then we've got our minced garlic. I used store-bought, which I already threw the jar away, the store-bought basil pesto instead of my own homemade because I ran out. And then I have 1 bell pepper. Again, you can use orange, red, green, whatever you want. And then my secret ingredients, which is the McCormick garlic and herb. So we're gonna let this simmer, no lid, like I said, for 6 to 8 hours, stirring throughout the day. And then once this cooks down and we're ready to put it into jars, we will touch back together and go on to the next step. I wanted to pop back in and mention that you may have noticed I didn't put any salt or any sugar in this. A lot of spaghetti sauce recipes will call for that. I don't personally think that the sugar is necessary. On top of that, I'm hypoglycemic, so I just really watch how much sugar I consume. I think between that sweet pepper and the flavor of the tomatoes and some of the other ingredients, you won't miss the sugar at all, trust me. Now, as far as the salt goes, you may notice, the salt missing. And if you taste this and you're like, oh, something's missing, it's probably the salt, right? But I don't add it here because, one, I'm at that age where I just start watching how much salt I take in, how much sodium, because it can affect things like blood pressure and stuff like that. So I really try to keep my sodium intake down throughout the day. But what I do is when I actually cook this for dinner and prepare it, that's when I'll taste it. And I might add a little bit of salt when it's on the table about to eat it if I feel like it's really necessary. I also feel like a lot of times people, especially my husband, they'll add salt before they even taste something. So I just don't think salt is necessary when you're getting it cooked, prepped, and ready to can. However, you are certainly welcome to add that when you're getting everything together like we did, or throughout the process as you're tasting it. Or, like I do, just add the salt when you get it out of the cupboard and you're making it for dinner, or once it's on the table and you taste it and you feel like you need it. That way you can avoid over salting your food and consuming too much sodium throughout the day. All right, well, I just gave this another stir and we are clicking right along. So just continue to let this cook down. Like I said, a total of about 6 to 8 hours, and then we will be ready to can. So we let the spaghetti sauce cook for 8 hours, and a lot of that water evaporated out. It was storming last night, so I didn't get a chance to finish the video then. So I went ahead and ladled it all into clean, sanitized jars. I did put a teaspoon of lemon juice on the top of it after I got all the spaghetti sauce ladled in. That's just to help with the preserve the acidity, so it maintains the ability to just water bath and stay fresh while canned. After that, I wiped the rim of the jar, and then I got a clean rim and a clean lid put on, and then I just got it really nice and hand tight. So at this point, to finish this up, all we have to do is put them in our water bath pot and wait for that pot to boil. Put these in there. We're gonna boil them for 45 minutes. That is how long we need to water bath these for. And then we will pull them out, let them cool, put our label on it, and we will have nice, fresh, wholesome, preservative-free spaghetti sauce in our pantry for the next year to eat over the winter and that sort of stuff until we get more tomatoes next year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. You can also subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you.